Hey there, thanks for clicking play. In today's video, we're going to be fitting my Fiamma fan into my camper van. Now, this is not a how-to video, this is just me vlogging my progress as I put together my camper van, which is taking ages. So you're either here because you like watching this kind of stuff, or you're after some helpful tips. If you are after some helpful information, this might not be the video for you because I tend to get stuff wrong a lot. But just in case, I'm going to put timestamps in the description below so you can skip to relevant sections that might be useful to you. Without further ado, let's crack on with the video. As you can see, my workshop is an absolute mess because I'm in the middle of a video right now. But for some reason, it's absolutely scorching outside. So good weather is a rarity in the UK. I thought I'd take advantage of it because installing the roof fan, you've got to cut a big gaping hole in the roof. And when it's raining, not really ideal. So I'm going to get on with that now. So I went for the Fiamma Turbo Vent Premium. And the reason I went for this vent is because it was cheaper than £200. I did no research. I just know Fiamma's a decent brand. I was looking at the Max Air ones, the fantastic ones, looking at the cheap Chinese ones. But at the end of the day, I found this under £200, which I thought was a bargain. Like I said, I did no research, so first of all, there's a white and a crystal. The crystal lets the light through, which is what I wanted, but I ended up buying white because I didn't know crystal meant see-through. So, bit of helpful information, number one. The other thing it says here is that it has permanent ventilation, which I didn't know. So looking at the photos, it looks like there's a little lip where the air comes in and the air can come out, which I guess is a good feature. Let's just open it up and see what happens. Packaging isn't that great, or maybe it's just a really robust product, so it doesn't need it. Okay, let's see what we have here. So upside down. Yeah, it's just that nice, horrible off-white colour that you see in most camper vans. So most videos I've seen, there's like a square thing that slides out, so that once your roof lining's on, the square thing goes on and then adds a nice finishing. This one doesn't. Like, it looks like this is just the part that slides on. Is that going to go over my roofing? Alright, so out of the box, there's technically two pieces. There is this cover thing, and then we've got the fan here. So we've got a power cable coming out. There we go, there's the fan. Now it is one directional. This part, the front, where the hinges are, it's got like a little spoiler at the back. There's only one way this can go on, because that's got a cutout, which is where the crank is. There is a plus and a minus for the power there. There's an M plus and an M minus, I don't know what that is. And then underneath we've got all the buttons. I think it has a temperature? I don't know, I honestly don't know, I'll figure that out at some point. There's also this pack of widgets. I've got no idea what they're for either. Lots to figure out before I start cutting it, because once you start cutting it, that's it, you know, you could end up making an error. I want the fan to go in between this space where I've left the bar on the roof. But there is struts inside the van as well, so I've got to line it up with that. But at the moment, the fan is directly in between this section here. But is that too far to the front of the cabin? If I was ever to wall that section off, it would definitely interfere with the fan. I could move it to this section in here, but that would mean moving the roof rack forwards and replacing one of the rails, which is a bit of hassle, but you know, to get it done right, I might have to. But before we do, I've got to make a wooden frame anyway to support it, which means we've got to do some measurements. So the measurements would be on these beams up here. Got to remember that I'm probably going to be adding some 9mm plywood, maybe 12mm. Again, I've got to decide that, and that's going to support my roofing. The wooden box has got to go on this section here, and when I put it down, maybe I've got to put some mastic in these ridges. So I'm working on the frame first. I've come across a few conundrums. So the first one is I measured the roof to the beam, took into consideration I'm going to be putting 9mm ply for my cladding to go along, and that comes to 5.4. Now if I do 5.4 on a block of wood, that is going to raise this thing just miles away. Like the adjustment thing won't even go onto it. Like, it seems a bit deep. Some of the other fans I've seen, it's probably fine, but for this one, it's just too far away. If I turn my wood sideways and do it this, which I think is about like 35mm, which I think is what it says in the description anyway, everything seems fine. That does mean when it comes to the roofing, I've got to find a solution of making my cladding go over it and meet up to it neatly. I think that's a future me problem. Like, that seems a perfect size. It's just a bit too wide, so I'm gonna run this through the table saw so it's the right width. We're a bit close to cutting a hole in my van. I'm terrified of this, by the way. I'm so scared of cutting a hole in my van. And there's already another problem. So I went out and got these self cutting screws. I've seen a lot of people using these, especially when you're going into metal. It's going to go through the metal and into the wood, so it should be quite secure. But these are 5.5 millimeters, and the hole itself, I think, is 4.5, or it might be 5. They're a little bit tight. Even though these are self-cutting, they may split the plastic as they're going through, and when it's something that you don't want leaking, splitting plastic is the last thing. So I'm probably just going to like bore out these holes, because I'm pretty sure they're 5 millimeters, so I'm going to just bore them out to 5.5. And the heads on them don't fit in the holes on the top. This one comes with this rubber washer thing, so that could go over the top. Oh, why do I always do this? Alright, so we've now got our cuts. Just got to put these things together in a nice square and hopefully they line up.
Take a chance when the road before us falls under our face. I can't hold on, I can't remain so strong. We have the same old bond, but everything is wrong. My love is gone, but I've been born. I can't make it on my own. When I know my love is gone.
Frame's done and fits like a dream. So now I've got to go mark out where I'm going to be cutting. I'm probably going to do that tomorrow because I've decided not to put the fan at the very front. I didn't like where it was sitting, but then I was looking at where the actual fan itself has to go. And there's only one way round the actual covering goes, so that would mean the switches would be at the very front, almost hanging over the driver's side. So it makes more sense to move it back, but that does mean that I've got to go shift my rack 10 centimeters forward, remove one of the bars. But apart from that, it should fit.
Okay, got my wood ready to start marking out. I've still got to remove the rack, but I'm going to mark this out first because I need a bit of time to drive somewhere safe and shift the rack over. Doing this with one hand and filming with the other. I'm guessing it's going there. I think that's sound deadening, so I may have to take the sound deadening off, which is going to suck. No idea what this stuff is, but it is just cracking. Fuck, this is a pain in the ass. State of this crap. No idea what that crap was, but it's finally off the roof, which means I can start marking out. So I'm going to mark out where the roof rails go first, and then I'm going to start doing some measurements to make sure it's kind of centered to where I want it to be. Okay, so the first rail is here, and the second rail is here, which is near enough perfect. Okay, it's all marked up and ready to cut. Now, before I do that, I'm going to put a few cuts in the piece of wood here because the cables need to feed in and out and I want to make sure they're not obstructed and I'm not trying to chisel it away once it's attached. Just finished cutting the holes in the wood. Now I've got to decide if I'm going to go for it. The weather doesn't look great. The forecast doesn't say it's going to rain, but it's not blistering sunshine and bluebird skies like it was yesterday. Gonna make the decision in the next half an hour whether to go for it or not. Like, what happens if it starts raining halfway through? Do I just cover it up and then not touch my van? Like, is it gonna leak? How do I cover it up? I don't know. All right, let's go for it. If it rains, we'll deal with that and it'll be entertaining. So I'm using smaller drill bits to go up in sizes. I don't know if that's right or not, but I've always done it, so that's the way I'm doing it. Like hot metal chips raining down on me. So if I was to do this again, I would put the small pile of holes in, then go to the roof and drill downwards. Because I'd already drilled holes, lining up was quite easy. I just found one hole, stretched to the next, and did that all the way around. I use masking tape because it makes it a little bit easier for marking out, but it also offers a tiny bit more protection to stop scratches on the top of your van when you're using your jigsaw.
Take a chance when the road before us falls under
Alright, so I was really hoping that this bag would have caught all the crap, and like most people's videos, the metal bit fell through and knocked it off, so. The clock is ticking. Now that that's done, I've got to file the edges. The clock is ticking, yet I'm still taking time to film it. The irony. Got to file the edges, then I've got to paint them, then I've got to leave them for a while, then I've got to get mastic in the joints, then I've got to mastic the wood to the ceiling and clamp that, leave that for a bit to dry, and then it can go on. Hopefully. Pretty new files just for this. Okay, whilst that's drying, I'm going to fill in these little ridges here. Now, I've not seen anyone else do it, but I thought it would be a good chance for me to play around with the mastic before I go on the roof and put it down. Got to double check which way around this goes. That's the front. And the reason we're double checking is we want to make sure that the electric sections are in the right place. I'm also going to measure up and cut these strips to length. That way, once it's cleaned up and I start putting this mastic on, it should make it a lot quicker. As I said, I was preparing the mastic, and because they've got tape on one side, it made sense to just make a sandwich out of 2 layers. So I've gone around doing a double thick layer for each section, but now I'm not sure if I'm going to have enough tape to finish it, but 2 layers on their own might be enough. I have got some mastic left. Things were going really smoothly up until this point, which is really strange for me. So I should have known things were about to go wrong. Because I was really worried it was going to rain, I didn't leave the wooden frame on long enough to dry properly. So my fancy self-drilling screws pushed the wooden frame off and it fell onto the floor. Knowing Sikaflex dries pretty quickly, I panicked and jammed some wood in so I could force the screws in to hold the whole thing together. But this corner section just didn't feel right. Because I'd cut the hole for the fan so precisely, when I was panicking and putting the frame back on, I miscalculated its position by about 2mm. This was enough to stop the fan dropping in properly and making a full seal. So there was space around 3 of the corners, but one of them was getting obstructed. Because of forcing the vent in at that one point, and the wood supporting it from the bottom being at an angle instead of directly upwards, made the frame shift and separate without me knowing until all the screws were in.
It's all about how you were with my parents. Yeah, and changed their mind. 'Cause you were sweet and looking like you care, boy.
When it fell down, I forgot to check which direction to put it back on. So that means the grooves that I cut out for my switches is supposed to be over here. And the groove I cut out for this piece of wire here is, oh yeah, it's fucked. As well as that, obviously we've got this huge gap, so that's just supporting it at the moment. Ugh.
Day 3 of fitting the fan, because technically day 1 was measuring, prep, making the wooden frame, and then realising I didn't have mastic, so I had to order it. Day 2 was actually cutting this thing in the roof, so it's fit, and here we are at day 3. Now, it didn't rain, but it did actually snow overnight, so in the morning I came and checked, and there didn't appear to be any roof leak. But I did leave the masking tape on the top, so I'm going to remove that now. I'm going to check everything. I think that's pretty much it.
I've got no idea why this was such a pain to take off. Maybe because there was snow on it and then some blistering heat, but it was an absolute pain to remove. Now, one thing that really didn't help, I put the masking tape too close to the Sikaflex. That meant I had to start cutting lines in the Sikaflex to make sure it didn't tear it all off.
It's been a few weeks since I fitted the vent, but I wanted to give it a bit of time before finishing the video because I was worried there was going to be leaks, and there was. But those leaks weren't actually from the roof vent. They were caused when I was walking on the roof installing the roof rack. Now, I'm going to do a video where I cover how I've been trying to fix those once they are fixed, but for now the roof vent is in and it's fully sealed. The reason I was concerned it was going to leak is I use Sikaflex 521, and apparently I should have been using Sikaflex 512, I think. That's the Campervan specific one. It's got a picture of a motorhome on the front. I should have guessed. But at this point in time, the vent's in, it's perfect, it's not leaking. Now, since then I've actually figured out the electrics as well, and it's really straightforward. There was no need for me to cut spaces in the wood to feed cables, because for the electrics on the switch, you only need to wire the cable that's on the fan into one side and then a power into the other. The cover, however, is still too far away from the fan, so I am going to get an extender to make sure that this dial here is working. Now, the whole project was going really smoothly and I was very happy with it until the wood fell off. But if you're doing it yourself, maybe prop it up to start with or get someone to hold it from the underneath. Now, my original plan was just to have that one roof vent, but because I found it so easy and I'm quite confident, I'm going to install a second vent at the back of the van, so that should be the next video. But as I said, it's in, it's not leaking, it's great. As usual, thanks for watching. If you've got any tips, questions or suggestions, drop them in the comments below and we'll have a little chat, I guess. Apart from that, see you in the next video. Peace!